Grab your cup. I want to share with you common traits that show up in adults who have still wounding from their childhood, who still have things that are showing up from the past and affecting how they live and be today in their jobs, in relationships, with themselves, any of it. And then I'm going to share with you a list of things that we see when people have done the healing. And listen, a lot of us have wounds for all different reasons. It doesn't mean that you had a terrible childhood. It doesn't mean that your parents didn't love you. But we have wounds when things happened at certain times in our lives, okay? So the first list is traits that we see when people have not addressed the wounding. So the first one is feeling unsafe in the world. So yeah, there are times and situations when we're not safe, and it's appropriate to recognize that and not stay in those situations. But feeling unsafe in the world generally, even when there's no reason to, even when things are okay, which leads to a constant state of stress, right? People who say they're always stressed out, that would be a reason why. There's always an underlying feeling of not feeling safe. The second one is blaming or criticizing self and others. So constantly blaming other people, having a critical voice all the time in your head about yourself or about others, and being very defensive. So people who have unhealed wounds automatically defend rather than hear a difference of opinion. You can see that in work situations. If you're doing your work and a coworker or a boss says something and there's defensiveness there, that's a trauma response. That's a wounded response. Not being able to just hear it for what it is and then decide. Another one is comparing yourself to others, which is looking for external validation all the time. How do I compare? How do I show up? Do others think I'm doing good? And needing that external validation. Having limited fear-based thinking. I'm not enough. Nothing that I do is enough. There's not enough money. There's not enough love. There's not enough rest. There's not enough anything. Very limited fear-based thinking about what's possible for life. Also, having very black or white thinking, like no in between. There's either right or wrong. There is no other way to think about it. It's right or it's wrong, okay? In situations, either overreacting, blowing up, or shutting down and not talking. Somebody says something, you don't agree with it, you get defensive, and then you don't talk. And if you're in a relationship with somebody else who has their own wounds, nobody talks, can go on for days. Or there's just explosiveness. Somebody's explosive and the other person shuts down. There's not a healthy, productive way of communicating. The next one is harmful actions and self-neglect. So people who have had wounding in childhood maybe had situations where they weren't really taught to take care of themselves. Maybe they were in households where they did a lot of the caretaking for others, even when they were very little. Alcoholic households, anything, single parent households, and the mom just needed a lot of help, or the dad, whoever the single parent was, but just stepping up. So that self-care never really happened. And in fact, self-harm can show up when we are not only not taking care of ourselves, or let me add this in. So if you're thinking self-care of like eating well and exercising and doing the things to take care of your physical body, that is what I mean. But then there's also actually harming ourselves rather than dealing with an external. We don't feel safe to deal with what's out there, so we harm ourselves, or we don't take care of ourselves with our food, our exercise, take care of ourselves spiritually, take care of ourselves with sleep, all the things like that. And the last one is boundaries. Not having appropriate boundaries for self or for others. So boundaries for self look like not taking on too much work, more than you can do, saying no rather than yes all the time, not being a people pleaser, but being authentic to yourself. Those are boundaries for yourself, and also boundaries around your self-care. And boundaries with others are, ignoring or shoving down what you want to say when people are abusive or people are nasty to you or people pile stuff on you and taking it, things like that. So that's the list of traits that show up and how it affects how you work, your relationships, your physical body, your health, when there's unhealed wounding. Here's a list of things that we see with people who have done what it takes to heal the wounding. They feel safe in the world. They feel safe that things are going to turn out okay. They don't look for external validation, but they look for that internally, and they feel free to share their authentic self. They feel free to express who they are. They observe things without judgment, meaning somebody can have a difference of opinion, somebody can do something differently, and instead of blaming or criticizing or being defensive, they kind of step back with curiosity, no judgment, and go, oh, let me think about that. Let me consider that. Let me look at how you did that, like that. Having access to limitless, instead of feeling very limited, living in lack and scarcity and fear, limitless thinking. There's going to be enough. Looking at different possibilities, not saying I don't have enough money, so I can't do that. I don't have enough support, so I can't do that. But going, how could this work? Seeing opportunity, seeing possibility, and trusting that it's going to be okay so you can do the things that you want to do, okay? Being open to having childlike experiences, because a lot of times in childhood wounding, we didn't have that. So being open to creativity, being open to using imagination rather than just logical, relying on logical problem solving, using imagination, being creative, being open to play, being spontaneous, not needing to control outcomes, get out in front of it. Let me have the 5 possibilities all handled in my head and have all the outcomes handled. Not needing to do that, but allowing for spontaneity and trusting that you can show up, spontaneity, and show up handling whatever comes, not needing to control, okay? Practices disciplined self-care. But I just want to make a distinction about that. When self-care comes as a militant form of almost self-abuse, like I've got to exercise this way every day, even if I don't feel good. I mean, if you have a goal that you're training for or something, I get that. But when there's a militant way of looking at yourself, that's not healthy. But having disciplined self-care consistently, managing yourself and taking care of yourself and putting yourself as a priority. And then the last one is having appropriate boundaries with what you allow others to do and say and what you allow yourself to do. So if any of those are showing up in your life from the first list, just look at what's the impact of that. How does that keep showing up? It's going to keep showing up until the wounds are healed. If you see that and you see yourself stuck in cycles and you want to have a conversation about how to do that, that's a big part of the work that I do. Helping people move through stress and anxiety, overcome things that are knock them to their knees and they're stuck getting up, and overcoming the childhood wounding, because it's all tied together with your ability to do that. Life is going to knock you down. How well you can get up depends on these traits that you have. So send me a message, drop me a comment, and have a good day.